SMS, also known as Short Messaging Service, has grown to be one of the most common tools for communicating. We conducted a survey among 70 students at SFU, where more than 90% of the respondents showed that they texted on a daily basis. But, along with the popularity of texting, SMS is criticized to be a catalyst of miscommunication. With its limit of 160 characters, lack of nonverbal communication, critics say that SMS reduces the quality of communication and supports shallow relationships.
But is this true? Does SMS lead to shallow relationships? In this video, we're going to talk about how SMS does not necessarily make relationships more shallow, nor does it dictate how they are formed. Instead, we argue that SMS is simply a tool that people use to meet their own needs, which may include both enriching and simplifying relationships. To begin, we will first look at how SMS facilitates relationships. Contrary to the idea that SMS creates shallow relationships, Frederick Lesage at Simon Fraser University points out that shallow relationships are always
or mobile phones that people have shallow relationships. People have always had. There's always been opportunities or moments or relationships between people that have always been shallow. So this is just presenting one other way to maintain shallow relationships.
Our survey results show that people prefer calling those that they are more intimate with, such as family members, significant others, and close friends. And they chose to text people less close in relation, such as acquaintances and colleagues. Therefore, SMS is used to facilitate relationships that were already in themselves intimate or shallow.
To shed light on the other side of the coin, however, some theorists and academics have actually recognized that SMS can in fact allow for more thoughtful relationships. Communications teaching assistant Catherine Hart talks about this.
Text messaging allows for a lot more control over how a person's presented in a conversation. If a text message catches you off guard and you're not quite sure what to say, you have some time to think about it and to formulate your response. You could show that message to other people to get their opinion. There's a lot more ability to think through your response rather than being put on the spot and having to reply right away, and having perhaps a more honest response. So you definitely get a lot more control over how you present yourself in a text message.
Jenna Langer's media richness theory echoes what Catherine is saying, where asynchronous communication actually allows people to become more thoughtful and careful in how they present themselves. Particularly when it comes down to dating or opportunities for more intimate relationships, Lin and Tong suggest that texting actually allows people to talk more openly about their feelings.
When we talk about how SMS affects relationships, it really boils down to how it is being used. Based on the technology acceptance model, people use texting because it's easy and useful in their life. Our survey responses directly reflects this model, where all the reasons provided by the students were either that it was easy to use or that they found it convenient to respond whenever they were free.
I'm not so sure that the medium determines how people use it. I think that the medium has to adapt itself to what users want. And I think texting has adapted itself to, or people's use of texting has adapted itself to their needs. And I would locate that need between something like an email. There's human adaptation to the limits of the technology, but I think also people push the technologies in ways that are unexpected, and that they will adapt the technologies to their needs, which is what emoticons are about. I mean, emoticons weren't given to us by some system in order to make our communication better. Emoticons are a way for people to overcome the limitations, or even just acknowledge the limitations of that particular medium. And the limitation is you don't have gesture, you don't have voice, you can't modulate your communication in order to get the emotional side of the message across.
In Professor Baker's last point, people are not only empowered to decide how they want to use their technology, but they also adapt different ways of using it to suit their own needs. Specifically for texting, emoticons provide an example of people not being limited by SMS in itself. SMS merely maintains existing relationships. Through our interviews and surveys, we discovered that SMS is simply a tool for people to adapt and use according to their needs. Apart from theoretical and practical terms of how people engage in SMS, It is also important to note that recent features of text messaging has helped to overcome its limitations. And despite criticism towards SMS for limiting emotional expression, unlimited texting has nulled the 160-character limit and increased SMS's appeal and usefulness.